Hi, I'm Isaac Anderson.
Kai Cooksey.
I'm Sarah McKinney.
I'm Joe Navarre.
Jameson.
And we're Team 4. We've been tasked with answering the question, what are the financing options to allow buyers to acquire the needed technology for a neonatal ward in Africa?
The reason we're talking about financing at all is to support their mission.
I think the very first thing we should do when we get to brainstorming is we should all do it individually for just even a few minutes, like 10 minutes, like nobody says anything. Like whether you're here or in this room or not, but just 10 minutes of people on their own come up with ideas. Because the minute somebody says one thing, then we're going to frame that.
I think it's really important to frame the problem, in particular in this situation, because we're trying to really understand what it is we're trying to solve, because sometimes the question asked isn't exactly what it is that we're trying to solve. There's some other underlying problem. So we spent a lot of time framing the problem, and I think that really helped us in our brainstorming session.
How do we brainstorm this?
Our brainstorming session was a little bit difficult because we started with a question I had no experience with. I mean, I've never been to Africa. I've never lived in Africa. I don't know what Africa is like. So I Google, what is Africa like? And you know what I find? It's got rich cities and poor, dusty villages. And so the financing options that we have available to us in each of those locations is totally different. Financing needs to be as diverse as the people living in Africa.
I'm told I lack creativity when I'm exposed to groupthink.
I think this might be the first time I've ever participated in like a proper brainstorming session where it's unstructured, something different than anything I've experienced before. But I think it went well. Probably the hardest thing was us kind of getting out of the sort of methodical, I go, you go kind of idea that we're used to with.
So, Bo, I was talking to some people the other day, and they asked the question, what makes this team qualified to tackle this particular project? Well, number one, we are Rice professional MBA students. We're also engineers, economists, analysts, traders, and originators. But most importantly, after a year in this program, we're battle tested through numerous papers, cases, presentations, simulations, and happy hours. So what do you think about that, Bo? Where are potential sources of money?
Sources of money?
What are the sources for money?
So the first one is the government, right? The federal government, whatever country you are.
Yeah.
The local government or the international government. So
There's nonprofit, there's banks, of course, traditional loans.
Banks have money.
micro lending or like
Even social financing.
People have money.
grants and aid.
Even just donations, like individual and
The hospital has some money or some way to raise revenue.
Investors have money.
Multinational companies.
corporate donations.
Corporations have money.
The patients, what's their ability to pay? Maybe not a lot, maybe better than we expect, but something to think about.
Bonds. We even came up with the idea of goodwill bonds.
Lastly, you also have the option to use debt, in that many hospitals are currently deprived of financing sources because companies don't feel comfortable lending for medical equipment because they just don't think there's a value, and that's really not the case.
Currently in Malawi, these projects are heavily subsidized by NGOs. The question then arose, how would we roll out these projects in more developed countries across Africa? That's when we shifted focus to Nigeria, which is the largest country in Africa by both GDP and population.
Maybe attacking it in pieces makes it a little more feasible too. A couple different sources, like you get the bonds to source the equipment, you get the community maybe to source the consumables and the distributors to do a maintenance program, and then you get some companies that are already shipping stuff to just like tack ours on.
Some sort of partnership.
Yeah.
What's unique about financing medical equipment in Nigeria? Well, hospitals are adverse to equity financing for projects and equipment. However, they're open to accessing the debt markets. Unfortunately, the cost of debt is exceedingly high, with interest rates near 20 to 25%. In addition, most banks require long-term business plans in order to even access the markets, which most hospitals don't have.
So really, Rise 360's role is in supplying the equipment to the aggregators, but they're contingent upon getting external financing from banks and lenders, which they aren't currently able to access. Basically, that money, after going back to the aggregators, will be paying Rise 360 for the equipment. The new equipment that Rise 360 is passing through the aggregators and the EGO distribution hub then goes to sort of more central hospitals. And because the aggregator has been able to take advantage of the scale of the simplified distribution system, they're able to hopefully reduce costs. Once the large
And
central...
the aggregator is going to be, so Rice 360 will just have to find an aggregator.
Correct.
Some NGO who will take ownership of this.
Exactly, so work out some sort of strategic partnership. And then once the equipment's made its way to the larger central hospitals, the smaller hospitals will be able to send their patients to the neonatal patients to the central hospitals. And then as the large central hospitals have made use of the equipment successfully, and because the equipment doesn't die, it lasts for years, once they've had it for some number of years or some number of months, they're able to then pass that equipment down after they've gotten their use out of it.
And this will be a leasing model somewhat between the hospitals and aggregator?
Correct.
And the primary target for large central hospitals will be the private hospitals with the proper funding for this type of new equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Nigeria, and that can be modified depending on the country that they move to next. And the aggregator can continue to basically bring in the full demand of the country to take advantage of the lower interest rates and the higher volume manufacturing.
Exactly.
So what are some of the advantages of using an aggregator?
By using an aggregator, we can really centralize our equipment and funding input. And really, the advantage of going through an aggregator is that you can develop long-term plans. This is critical in lowering your interest rates.
And this is something that we saw when talking with local banks, that they won't let the hospitals access the debt markets unless they have a long-term plan.
And they each kind of run as more like an individual business, and by aggregating everything, and because Rice 360 or the aggregator is interested in the long-term like sustainability of this, they would be interested in making a long-term plan and helping them access this funding.
An aggregator also creates a central hub where we can concentrate our new and used equipment, which will be shipped out to large or small hospitals.
Through a leasing model.
Yeah, through a leasing model. We can also achieve economies of scale by really ramping up the volume of CPAPs that we're sending in through aggregators.
So you could potentially relocate to their current producers, I guess Chinese manufacturing facilities as well, right?
Exactly. You can achieve lower cost manufacturing through Chinese producers, and you could really lower your distribution costs. Instead of air freight, you can shift over to sea freight. Now, aggregators also provide flexible and dynamic means of distribution, since they will be local.
Go. Go.
Guys, so what's next?
Rice 360 needs to find an aggregator, which can be an NGO, a corporation, or a local university, depending on the country.
Secondly, they need to come up with a long-term plan for manufacturing, distribution, and leasing, which will give them an idea of the total funding they need.
The last thing they need is they need a financial partner. We're talking about a local bank, such as Diamond Bank in Nigeria, as well as an international organization, such as the World Bank, the IMF, or the Africa Health Infrastructure Fund.
Thank you and good luck.